So, ladies and gentlemen, the golden age is, I believe, happening right here, right now. And it is golden because we have gone for the new and the brave and the different. Because we now have a diversity of traditions, forms and artistry, and new art forms which collaborate with each other. The arts have been influenced from without as well as from within. They are now more reflective of society which nourishes it more than ever before, in part thanks to the Arts Council as a development agency. These were the words of Sir Christopher Frayling, Arts Council Chair, given in a paper called The Only Trustworthy Book, Art and Public Value, and delivered to an audience at the V&A during February 2005. The Chair of the Arts Council also noted, and I quote, "Contemporary visual arts have enjoyed not just a sustained period of productive activity, but a much higher profile than ever before." According to Frayling, contemporary art's growth in popularity and broader appeal has come about in part as a result of increased funding courtesy of the National Lottery. Citing the development of new galleries and obviously widespread refurbishment of existing venues, but more notably the Baltic and Tate Modern, for Frayling, such activity represented a significant moment, or represents a significant moment in the arts. Despite being upbeat about the Golden Age, Frayling also used his speech to raise a number of issues. Firstly, the decision by government to enforce a standstill budget for the arts from 2005 to 2008. Secondly, and more importantly in this context, he argued the case in favour of the arm's length principle, a term often used to describe the ideal relationship between the Arts Council and central government. Frayling characterised the arm's length principle by stating that whilst the Arts Council is accountable to government for its spending, it should, and I quote, "remain fiercely independent in making decisions." For Frayling, government involves the policy framework, but it is not supposed to interfere with the implementation. The catalyst for such assertions was what Frayling described as the narrowing distance between government and the Arts Council. And he says, "While it was the Conservative government of the 1980s that first introduced the mantra, 'culture should serve the economy,' since 1997, New Labour has added a whole list of priorities still on the basis of instrumental outcomes. The DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, is becoming increasingly more hands-on. Therefore, whilst Frayling was quick to applaud the government for what he saw as, and I quote, its instrumental role in enabling the Golden Age, he was also eager to point out the problems of increased government meddling with the shaping of arts policy. He quoted the first arts minister, Jenny Lee, who once asserted that such political meddling would lead to, and I quote, "boring, stagnant art." History tells us that there is nothing new in how government attempts to meddle or politicise the Arts Council. What Chin Tao Wu has described as the Thatcherising of the Arts Council during the 80s, and the Arts for Everyone scheme brought in under John Major's government in the early 90s, a precursor to lottery funding as we know it today. These are two notable examples of how government has attempted to shape the Arts Council in its own image. The influence of New Labour continues this trend with the privatisation of culture and the introduction of schemes such as Art for New Audiences. What has all this got to do with cultural diversity? Bearing in mind Frayling's concern about the erosion of distance between government and the Arts Council, if we look at cultural diversity policies, the Arts Council today appears complicit in carrying out New Labour's inclusion policy verbatim. Even during the heady days of Thatcherism, the Arts Council did not prioritise cultural diversity as it does today. However, neither did it ignore the activities of various groups or individuals. Projects such as Third Text, the African and Asian Visual Arts Archive and Autograph, to name a few, were funded under the rubric of regularly funded organisations. Such initiatives were not devised by the Arts Council, but by independent artists and curators who were supported by the Council. Given the context of such support, it could be considered that these initiatives were pushing, or support of these initiatives, were pushing against Thatcherism's corporate and anti-art sensibilities. One could even say that this was evidence of the arm's length principle at work. Today, the Arts Council is telling us who we are and where we should be. By its own admission, the Arts Council has, for over 30 years, been involved in what it has called policy building relating to cultural diversity. But to what end? Is it really for the benefit of those it purports to support, or merely to maintain the status quo? During the past 4 decades, initiatives and policies have been devised to address what has at various times been referred to as ethnic arts, multicultural arts, the Black Arts Centre and New Internationalism. Although by no means the sole arts-related public body to have actively pursued policies and strategies relating to cultural diversity, the Arts Council now willingly occupies what could be considered to be the most influential position regarding the impact of cultural diversity on the visual arts sector. The Arts Council's various strategies, not least the priority status given to what in today's funded parlance is called culturally diverse arts, arguably epitomise its continued authority and influence over such debates and activities. Rather than being part of a broader mechanism for facilitating engagement and opportunities, such cultural diversity initiatives have increasingly become the default mechanism through which certain constituencies, say for a select few, are expected to operate. From Decibel through to the Arts Council funded building projects across England, there now appears to be a normalisation of initiatives that are drawn along lines of racial separation. This particular brand of patronage is not about equality, but is about constraint and categorisation. Now, is there anything wrong with wanting to raise the voice of culturally diverse arts in Britain, or in aiming to address the apparent dearth of certain constituencies from mainstream visual arts sector by establishing special fellowship schemes? As someone who was an Arts Council trainee himself in the early 90s, I do not deny how such schemes can provide a foot in the door. Interestingly, in those days, it was not just black or Asian folk who got trained. White folks did too. The Royal College of Art's MA curating course, established with support from the Arts Council, was essentially a replacement for this scheme. Yet despite this, the Arts Council now appears intent on providing patronage to tackle what one article referred to as a shortage of minority ethnic curators. However, such training schemes and criticism of them need to be seen in a broader context, not just as isolated examples of positive discrimination. Art Monthly's Comings and Goings column, a personal favourite of mine, presents an image of the visual arts sector whereby jobs in the sector are characterised not by how difficult it is to get one, but more so as a kind of musical chairs. Breezing in and out of institutions is all evidently part of the fun for some. There is never ever any doubt that these curators are able. For minority ethnics, though, they are in constant need of training and categorisation. Despite making cultural diversity one of its 5 priorities, if Decibel, the Arts Council's recent initiative to raise the voice of culturally diverse arts, is anything to go by, there is a chasm between concept and practice. At the height of Decibel's activity in 2003-2004, the most significant, or one of the most significant exhibitions to take place in a major public gallery was that by African American folk artists. This is one of numerous examples of how impoverished Decibel's engagement with the sector really is. Such a scenario suggests that Decibel fails to comprehend the nuances of diversity politics, and by association the struggle black artists continue to face in seeking recognition from the English gallery system.